All the class 10 students of St. Michael's Academy, welcome to another online physical science class. Today I am continuing current electricity part 4. So good morning students, and let's start. First I am starting with toxicity of CFL bulb. In my previous class I have discussed what are CFL and LED and which one is more economical in between incandescent bulb, CFL bulb and LED bulb. Here I am sharing some disadvantages of CFL. Since CFLs contain a small amount of mercury, which can be hazardous to one's health if ingested or inhaled, it is important to handle and dispose of CFLs correctly. The lifespan of a regular light bulb ranges from 700 hours to 1000 hours, while the lifespan of a CFL is between 8,000 and 15,000 hours. So can you get a mercury poisoning from a broken CFL bulb? Despite some alarming news reports, you don't have much to worry about. If a CFL breaks, some of the mercury that's contained in the bulb will evaporate into the air. In short, the exposure from breaking a compact fluorescent bulb is in about the same range as the exposure from eating a can or two of tuna fish. So you see the diagram here. A broken CFL bulb diagram has been shown. So it is seen that CFL type of fluorescent lamps are much advantageous in use than ordinary incandescent lamps. But every fluorescent bulb contains toxins, that is poisons, primarily mercury and its vapors, which are harmful to our health. When a CFL bulb breaks in our home, we should not touch the mercury that comes out of it. Cleaning up and proper disposal of this is too complicated. CFLs should never be thrown in garbage, and so their disposals are not easy. Even unbroken CFL bulbs are reported by some people to be causing migraines. Migraines means severe head pain, epileptic seizures type of disease, general ill feelings, achy joints, anxiety, etc. Thus, although CFLs are advantageous in use, particularly in consideration of energy savings, we must consider their toxic effects and disposal problems before their widespread uses. Now, power rating of some household appliances. What uses the most energy in your home? Water heater, 14% of energy use. Washer and dryer, 13% of energy use. Lighting, 12% of energy use. Refrigerator, 4% of energy use. Electric oven, 3 to 4% of energy use. TV, DVD, cable box, 3% of energy use. Computer, 1% of energy use. Now here a table has been shown. There ceiling fan, suppose 4 ceiling fans in a house. Power rating 100 watt. So hours used per day, hours used per day, that means 8 hours. So watt used per hours per day, that is 3200. How it is coming? 4 8s are 32. 32 into 100, 3200. Like this actually, generally your CSC also generally calculate. So for refrigerator C, same here, that is 2400. Lightning point billing will, what power actually will come. This is not the rupees, this is actually the power used. Okay, so like this lighting point, computer, monitor, television, VCR, radio, iron, everything. Total calculation may be 15,960 watt hour. After that, they will convert this into kilowatt hour and BOT unit. Then it will be multiplied by the exact rupees. That means rate of rupees. Hope so you have understood. This type of another diagram has been given in your book. That is a small diagram and only two columns are there. That's why I have made another diagram or table for you. Now, also being wasted and misused at homes, institutions, workplaces, malls, restaurants, etc. In institutions, the workplaces, air conditioners, heavy watt lights, fans, computers, etc. are needlessly left on consuming electricity until the employees leave office in the evening. A pie chart has been given how much energy actually used. In case of fans, lighting, refrigerator, everything, you can see the percentage. Now, I'm telling you that suppose a 60-watt bulb in your house. So, misuse of electrical energy in appliances. In domestic use, first I'm taking a 60-watt electric bulb. Power of the bulb 60. So, electric energy consumed per hour power into time, that is 60 into 1, 60 watt hour. So, W is equal to 60 by 1000. That is kilowatt. We have to convert 60 watt into kilowatt. How to convert? Now, suppose time given 6 hours. So, energy consumed by bulb per day 0.06 kilowatt into that particular time. Just now I have said in the diagram, previous diagram, 6 hours, that is coming 0.36 kilowatt hour or 0.36 BOT unit. So how to calculate the process I have told, power rating and energy consumption, the amount of electrical energy it uses per second. Energy is equal to power into time, that is E is equal to P into T. So applying this formula, we will find out the energy. Now 1 kilowatt hour is equal to 1 BOT unit actually. Now energy is equal to power into time. 1 kilowatt hour is equal to 1 kilowatt into 1 hour. That means 1000 watt into 60 because we have to convert this into seconds. So it's coming 36 into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means 36 into 10 to the power 5 joule. Now cost is equal to total number of units into cost per unit. Total number of units into cost per unit. Suppose here it has been came units 0.36. So into suppose 50 paise. So 0.36 into 0.50 will be the total costing. Hope so you have understood. So like this, another examples in your book, a 40 watt fluorescent bulb, refrigerator, electric fan, everything is there, television. You please do the calculation in your copy, and if you are facing any type of problems, please inform me by through mail so that I can send you one video on this. Now series and parallel connection of two electric bulbs. If a wire joins a battery to one bulb, to the next bulb, to the next bulb, to the next bulb like this, then back to the battery in one continuous loop, the bulbs are said to be in series combination. If each bulb is wired to the battery in a separate loop, the bulbs are said to be in parallel. So what is the difference between wiring in series and parallel? In a series circuit, all components are connected end to end, forming a single path for current flow. In a parallel circuit, all components are connected across each other, forming exactly two sets of electrically common points. See, in the first diagram in series combination bulbs are connected, and in the second diagram in parallel combination bulbs are connected. Now, advantage of parallel connection. Why parallel connection is preferred over series connection? When appliances are connected in a parallel arrangement, each of them can be put on and off independently. This is a feature that is essential in a house's wiring. Also, if the appliances were wired in series, the potential difference across each appliance would vary depending on the resistance of the appliance. See the first diagram, series combination. Supply voltage same 220V or 110 VAC. AC means alternating current. Now all the bulbs are off. If any break in wire, if wire will be broken down at any place, that means all the bulbs are off because this is in series combination. But if this will be in parallel combination, the exact point, same voltage, same thing is there. But if in any point the wire will be broken down, the rest of bulbs are on. So this is the actual advantage of parallel connection. Now, let two electric bulbs of 6 watt and 12 watt are joined in series and parallel to a battery of 12 volt. In series connection, 6 watt bulb glows brightly and in parallel connection, 12 watt bulb glows brighter. So we have the resistance formula, that is R is equal to V square by P. So resistance of 6 watt bulb would be more than 12 watt bulb by this formula. Now in the first case, small current I passes through both the bulbs, and as heat produced, H is equal to I square RT. So heat produced in the 6 watt bulb would be more and glow brighter. In the second case, same voltage V is applied to both the bulbs, as heat produced is equal to V square by RT. So heat produced in 12 watt bulb would be more and would glow brighter. Electromagnetism. What is electromagnetism? In simple words, when electric current is flown through a electric wire, around the wire a magnetic field has been produced. So within this magnetic field, the incident happens, or that actually called electromagnetism. In a simple words, first I have described. Now, in terms of physical science, electromagnetism is the study of the electromagnetic force, one of the four fundamental forces of nature. It includes the electric force, which pushes all charged particles, and the magnetic force, which only pushes moving charges. See the diagram, whatever I have shown, electricity, when two poles of electric current has been produced, and around this magnetic field has been produced. That is only electromagnetism. In the year 1819, Danish physicist Hans Christian Ørsted first observed the action of electric current on the magnet. In this experiment, a wire XY is placed along north-south directions. Under this wire is placed a freely pivoted magnetic needle. Pivoted means freely rotated, which sets itself parallel to the wire. When current is passed through the wire from south to north, the north pole of the needle will be deflected towards west. If the current flows in the opposite direction or the wire be placed below the magnetic needle, the deflection of the needle would be in the opposite direction. It is also observed that if the wire be placed perpendicularly, that is east-west, to the needle, then on passing current there would be no deflection of the needle. So in a particular direction wire should be placed. A magnetic needle can only be deflected by a magnetic field. Hence magnetic field is produced near the conductor current is passed through it, and that's why this deflection of magnetic needle occurs. So from here, electromagnetism concept appears. After that, French scientist André-Marie Ampère put forward a rule known as Ampere's swimming rule for determining the direction of deflection of a magnetic needle due to current. So Ampere's swimming rule states that if a man swims along the current carrying wire such that his force is always towards the magnetic needle, his face is always towards the magnetic needle through which the current is entering his feet and leaving from his head, then the north pole of the magnetic needle is always deflected towards his left hand. Clearly visible picture I have given. A man is swimming, current flowing, direction has been given, and according to his left hand direction, the direction of magnetic needle also occurs. Now, right hand, left hand rule. First I am describing right hand thumb rule. That is in your book, right hand grasp rule. Both are same. So right hand thumb rule was given by Maxwell. According to him, imagine you are holding a current carrying wire in your right hand such that your thumb points in direction of the current. Then the direction in which fingers wrap the wire represents the direction of magnetic lines of force. A diagram has been given where your thumb, you are holding a rod, and your rod means a wire, and your thumb points in direction of the current. So your other fingers which wrap the wire represents the direction of the magnetic lines of force or magnetic field. So by some experiment that is in your book, from your book you can read that by some experiment magnetic field lines around a long straight current carrying wire has been decided. And magnetic field lines due to a circular current loop also has been required. Please read this portion. This is not so important. That's why I am not explaining. If you read this simply these two experiments, you will understand. Now let's come to the next important rule, that is Fleming's left hand rule. That is actually action of magnet on current carrying wire. From Oersted's experiment, it is seen that there is action of current on a magnet. Now the current applies a force on the magnetic needle. So from Newton's third law of motion, the magnetic needle must also apply an equal and opposite force on the current carrying wire. As a result, if a stationary magnet be placed near a current carrying wire, the wire, if free to move, will be deflected. So Fleming put forward a rule called Fleming's left hand rule for determining the direction of motion of current carrying conductor placed in a magnetic field. The rule is also called as motor rule. So Fleming's left hand rule states that whenever a current carrying conductor is placed in a magnetic field, it experiences a force due to the magnetic field. The middle finger points in the direction of the current. The thumb gives the direction of force or motion acting on the conductor. That means if the thumb, the first finger and the middle finger of the left hand be held mutually perpendicular to each other in such a way that the first finger points to the direction of the magnetic field and the second finger to that of the current, then the thumb will indicate the direction of motion of the conductor. You can do this experiment in your house with your hand always, and whenever you will read the rule, please don't learn it. Always do it with your left hand so that you can remember it. Now, Barlow's wheel. English mathematician Peter Barlow devised an instrument in 1822 that built on advances from earlier in the century, including the invention of the first battery, the voltaic pile, to create a very early kind of an electric motor. It combined the powers of electricity and magnetism to produce continuous motion. So Barlow's wheel principle, how it works actually. Action of a magnet on current and how rotational motion is produced due to this can be shown by Barlow's wheel experiment. The wheel rotates with its plane being perpendicular to the direction of the magnetic field, and during its rotation only one point of the star dips into the pull of the Mercury at a time. You see the diagram properly. Permanent magnet, a horseshoe shaped permanent magnet is there, and obviously a battery has been connected with wire to this circuit. Connecting wire is also there, and a a star-like structure is there, and Mercury is there. Electrified Mercury pool. Whenever Barlow's wheel will be switched on, the star will be rotating, and one corner of the star, one by one, it will dip to the Mercury, and then it will get off again another one. It will come like this. The mechanism of Barlow's wheel. First, an electric circuit is created with the help of a weight battery. The circuit passes through a metal wheel and continues. When the wheel is in position through a trough of mercury, which can carry current, located below the wheel. When the wheel is lowered into the mercury using the wheel height slider, the circuit is established. When it is removed from the liquid, the circuit is broken. But while such a circuit might power a small light bulb, it can't make the wheel turn. Another force is required, magnetism. A horseshoe magnet positioned around the wheel provides the magnetic field. That field interacts with the magnetic field created around the wire, making the wheel move. See the diagram, bulb is glowing due to Barlow's wheel. Constantly, electricity and magnetism both are working. Okay, so Barlow's wheel is a combination of the both. Now, this is the mechanism given in your book. In a short form, I have given over here. You just go through from your book also, and if you have any type of query, email me at my given email ID. Thank you students. For any doubts or queries, please email me at shudeshna1.sma@outlook.com.